Hello.
Hello. So we will start, and first of all, welcome to this event, and thank you so much for joining in. And I'll ask Diksha to take it forward. And yeah, thank you for joining. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Hi Vivek.
Hi, Diksha. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good.
Okay. So, ignore my background, please. I'm sorry for that. Anyways, hi guys. He's Vivek Nigam. He's from Base Master and a former Google Summer of Code student at CERN. He will be explaining his project to you, and he did a session about GSOC and everything. As I have already mentioned, you people can go and check it out on CERN. Sorry, NDSC Explore. Sorry, and yeah, Vivek, you can take it forward, and they will ask you questions at the end. So it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Diksha. Just give me a second. Is there any echo do you all feel in your voice? If someone can respond.
No, it's
No, no.
fine. Yeah.
Is the voice fine right now?
Yes.
Okay, because last time when we recorded this, there was some echo issues. So I tried something different today. That's what I was testing out. If it's
Mm.
fine, then we can proceed.
Yeah.
So, hello everyone. As Disha introduced, I am Vivek Nigam, and I was a student with CERN. Particularly, I would say I was working with their exascale data management branch, which is Ruscio. And there were two other students along with me working on different projects in the same sub-organization of CERN HSF. And although there are numerous other organizations, other sub-organizations, sub-parts of it, which work in different areas, mine particularly was into how CERN manages its whole data, which is around the size of 10 to the power 9 something GBs, which is that amount of data they handle per day. So that is exabytes of data. So what that requires some framework of their own, because you cannot store such amount of data on Google Drive or any other cloud storage, or even if you did, it might end up in a huge bill for the storage which you pay for online. So what CERN, being very pioneer in scientific research, what they had in mind was they created a framework known as Ruscio some 7 to 8 years ago. And what it does is it helps the scientific data centers, like the ones working in gravitational waves, or the ones which are CERN's native Large Hadron Collider, and other experiments being conducted in Caltech in USA. So what they do is they have made this software, they have made this framework known as Ruscio, which helps you to facilitate all these data transfers between different data sites. If people here are aware of the distributed computing, and I would like if people may unmute themselves and interrupt in between. I don't mind doing that, because it would be, if it is an interactive session, I'll believe it will be more beneficial, because we have already done a much non-interactive one earlier. So if anyone has any questions in between, even though I'll take the questions pertaining to GSOC in the end, if there is something which I am telling and you have a doubt on that, you may ask me in between itself. It won't. I'll like try to summarize the answer in short. If it is longer one, I'll address that at the end. So I was telling about Ruscio, and what happened till now with Ruscio was that all the people who were using Ruscio were using it through a command line interface. So that command line interface, although very people who were working with CLIs from before, it was very easy, or maybe it was they were more familiar with it. If I'd say it was not easy, but they were more familiar with it. So what they did was they were using it with the command line or on the servers which were stored. But what happened, as the size of as Ruscio grew, Many data sites had this provision of like people using MacBooks or people using Linux desktops. And with all that amount of servers which were there, sometimes it became very hard to manage all those servers using just the command line. And it was a very tedious task to change any settings, because if you by mistake changed a wrong setting, now you have to just reset everything, or reset at least that server's whole settings, and then again put the settings in order. So that took a lot of time, and it became very critical at times. So what Ruscio had in mind was the people at Ruscio, my mentors, had in mind was to have something which would give a graphical interface to Ruscio, because obviously we're in 2020 and we don't want to just deal with the CLIs and stuff anymore, and it becomes very hard to see and manage stuff when it is you're dealing with a lot of people in the same cluster. So if you change one setting and it affects a lot of others, like this becomes a pain. So to eradicate that thing, they had a project in mind, which was to develop a native desktop application for Ruscio, which would basically have Ruscio as its base, the servers of Ruscio as its base, and would run on top of that on Linux, Mac, or Windows machines, so that people can use it graphically, and it won't cause much of, it will reduce the entry barrier for people using Ruscio, because if you are just given a CLI, it becomes very overwhelming to remember all the commands to upload the file, commands to download the file, commands to replicate a file, and all the other concepts which are there in Ruscio. So they had this thing in mind, also to help this cause to make a desktop application. What they had in mind was to now currently, if you use Ruscio, if you try to access any file, what happened was you had to write all the commands. Like you have to write Ruscio list files, then Ruscio list containers, then Ruscio list data sets, and there is a hierarchy. Like suppose the containers are at the top level, then the containers have data sets, and the data sets have files. So to reach a file, you need to first list all the containers, then you list all the data sets, and then you list all the files. And to do that was a very tedious task for people, because there are a lot of files, like around 100 to 200 files are there. So that becomes very messy, and you cannot just search for a single file. So now for that, they had something in mind called, this might be a very unfamiliar word to most of the people. It was even unfamiliar to me also. It was something pertaining to file systems, particularly Fuse file system interface, which is file system in user space. So that allows the normal users in a Linux environment, if people are familiar with the Linux environment, it allows the normal users, not the administrators, to have their own particular file system. So this might seem very overwhelming, but when you work with this, it was not as overwhelming as it sounds like. So for that, I had three things in mind. I was given three things in hand when I was discussing the project. The first one was to improve this existing system of mounting the whole Ruscio servers to your computer or your system and just browse it like normal folders. So that was the part of the Fuse file system. And then the second part was to build a whole desktop application for Ruscio. And the third one, which was a bit lightweight stuff, was to build a notification system for Ruscio, so that the users are notified about the changes in their files, their data sets, their containers, or if someone changes their, if someone tries to upload a file, and files are of like 1 TB or something. So it is very infeasible to just directly upload the file and start uploading it. So what people did was they put the file on upload, and then they went for lunch. And then when they came back, they tried to check the status of file by writing commands. And you have to write every time Ruscio status of your whole file ID, whatever it is. You have to write the file ID, and you have to remember a lot of stuff. So that was very even though Rusio was a very strong and robust software, this made it a bit cumbersome to use. So what they had in mind was the third thing which I had to complete during my GSOC was to uh, build a notification system, a small system tray application which would like just sit on your system tray, like if you are using a Windows PC, you have a Wi-Fi icon there, right? So you click that Wi-Fi icon and a system tray pops up. So I had to develop something like that for Rusio, although not exactly on the lines of how Wi-Fi tray works, but something like that. It should work and function like that, and it would show the status of all the files and the transfers which are going on. Basically, what you see in while downloading a file in Chrome or Firefox, something of that sort, but for uploading the files or even downloading them when you are as the need arises. So this was something which I had to handle during GSOC. It was a 3-part project actually. Generally, projects in GSOC are single part projects, which like you start from one end and you reach the other end, or you start from a part of the thing which is already being done and you complete that part, or you fill in multiple parts of a single project. So that was something which was a bit different with my project because it had 3 parts. And another thing which was different with my project was I had to deal with everything regarding the notification system and the desktop application. Since I had experience in UI and UX design as well as software development, so I designed the software from ground up, from designing the whole system architecture to designing the interfaces to mapping out the user journeys and everything. If people here are interested in UX also, you might be knowing about user journeys and stuff. So, or you might know about how some parts of how UX works. So I had to do all that, and I was working with a tech stack which none of my mentors was familiar of, which was like they are completely like Python ninjas, and they work with Python and the other development operation systems like Docker and other CI/CD stuff. So they worked with a very different tech stack, and I was working with JavaScript and React and Node.js and C++ and other things. Although one mentor was into C++, and he was the one who made that Fuse file system, the first part of my project. So he was the original creator of it, and I was the one who improved that during my GSOC. But I was solely responsible for creating 2 complete desktop, 2 applications, one which was Rusio Desktop, and the other one is known as Rusio Notifier. And I have 2 repositories which I actively maintain on Rusio right now itself, even after 3 months of GSOC. It's over. So that was something about my project. And if anyone has some questions regarding it, I would like to address them in the first 10 minutes itself. So if anyone has anything, you can just unmute yourself and ask about it. I would be really happy to answer if anything is there. I'll wait for 2 minutes. If anyone could respond that, because I wouldn't want it to be a lecture or webinar kind of thing. So if anyone could just respond regarding this. Hello.
If anyone have any doubt, then you can go ahead and ask him.
Yeah, because if I move ahead and you didn't get like even 10% of it, it will be really difficult for you to get the rest of the 60% of the 60 or 80% of the session which is going on.
Exactly.
If you have any doubts regarding it, or because if anyone doesn't have any doubt in this, I'd say it's brilliant of all of you, because I was the one who didn't knew like 80% of the terms which I just spoke around 7 months earlier. So that's why.
I have one doubt. Okay, so can you just explain a bit on Fuse actually? So yeah, I'd like to know more on that.
Okay, so regarding the Fuse module, see if you have which may I know your name first?
Okay, I am the DSC leader. I'm Subrat Kishore Datta. Yeah.
What's your
Yeah.
name?
I'm Subrat Kishore Datta.
Okay, hi Shubrat.
Yeah.
So Shubrat, which system are you using? Are you using a Mac or Linux or a Windows PC?
I'm using Windows. Yeah.
Okay, have you ever worked with Linux or Mac anytime?
Yeah. I worked with Linux.
Yeah, or even if you are working with Windows, have you seen this OneDrive folder in your file
Yeah.
explorer anytime?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you know how that file explorer, like how does a file explorer which is working offline is connecting to a service which is like online or on some other server or on any other service? So for that, if you're aware of how that works, that is something how Fuse would be working with Linux systems particularly and Mac systems as an extension of Linux.
Okay.
So what it does is it mounts, like if you have uh, sometimes in some people's mobile phone also, mobile phones will be a better example. You can access the Google Drive right from your file explorer. Sometimes if people are using Samsung phones, or sometimes it gives you the option of signing in on Google Drive, and then you can access the files normally like you access the other files on your local hard disk or the memory card. So what Fuse does is it allows the user, which is a non-privileged user, it does not have any administrative rights, on any normal user on a Linux system, to mount a whole drive kind of thing onto his computer, so that he can browse the drive like normal folders. So suppose if you have a Google Drive and you have it, imagine if having it on directly on a system. So all the folders and all the files which are there, which you open on a interface on drive.google.com, you just get it onto your file explorer. So you don't have to open the browser every time. You can just go to your file explorer and see how like read all the files and download them and copy them on your system. So that's something which works very well with Linux and Mac systems. With Windows, there are some limitations, but still, like OneDrive and Dropbox works very well in that case also. So if that answers your question.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
So that
there
was
is one. Yeah.
yeah.
The second question is coming from Shubhangi Chakraborty. So what is the CI/CD? So you just mentioned.
Okay. Hi, Shivangi. So CI/CD is something known as the full form will be continuous integration and continuous deployment. Suppose if you are familiar with GitHub, or if you're familiar with any open source Git manager, I would say like GitLab or GitHub or anything. If you push your code, if you commit and you push your code to your repository, what CI/CD would allow you is to like you have a piece of code and this is the existing piece, so it would allow you to fit in this code very easily, and also automatically build the whole software and like deploy it on a website. Suppose if you are using GitHub Pages, if you have ever used GitHub Pages, or if you have used any other hosting site, so most of the hosting sites have this service of like connecting with your GitHub repository, and now you can, if you, as soon as you push your website from your local system to GitHub repository, it sees the changes which are there, it builds the software, and it automatically pushes the changes to your website which is there. So this whole workflow would be something CI/CD simplified, very simple, in very simplified terms. So Russia people were working like they have experts who are working in this domain of CI/CD, like they continuously integrate all the parts of code coming from different parts of the world, or different developers, and then they mix it together, and then they have a pipeline which allows you to test all the code together and then push it to the repository, or push it to somewhere where other people or the users can download it. So that was something CI/CD is about. Any other person having any questions? So
Anyone can ask now. I will wait for 1 more minute and then we move on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I see that if no one has any questions,
Yeah, we can move on. Yeah.
I'd like to move on to some particular thing which I planned for this session, which I had a talk with Diksha also, that uh, most of the students have a doubt like what uh, tasks do you have to complete before you can start making a proposal for GSOC. So regarding the tasks, you cannot prepare yourself for the tasks which would be there for GSOC, because if they can be anything ranging from just setting up a system and testing out some software to something which might be some time, which might be time taking, like building a small feature, or like having a pull request open in their code repository. So that is a very wide range of topics which the organizations have. But for my particular case, what happened was I applied to Ruscio, in fact, in 2019. So in 2019, I had to do these tasks of setting up Ruscio on my system, and then they had some tests regarding Ruscio. Like after you set it up, you have to perform some actions, like if this is working or not. They have it on their they had earlier on their GSOC page, and they mailed it to me also, that you need to set up the system and test it out if it's working um, on your device. And also they asked me to read a research paper which they had, because that was the research paper on which Ruscio was based out of. And Ruscio was initially a research project by Martin Barisic, Mario Lasnik et al. So those two were my mentors actually for Ruscio, and they are the ones who built Ruscio in the first place. So that was something like they are guys of real experience. So they just wanted to check out that if I am very comfortable with like reading all these research papers and stuff, and if I am able to understand what the software is about, and if I am able to understand how I may add, or where I may add some features. So it was actually a two-part thing. First part was I had to uh, download. I had to set up Ruscio in such a way that I could test it. I could test out any changes which I make in the code base on my local system. So that would have me to know about technologies like Docker, and about Linux file systems, and basic Linux commands, and how networking works in Linux. So that was, and also how networking works in Docker containers. So these were some 5 main topics, along with my knowledge in Python, of course, because Ruscio is written in Python. So I had to know Python for that. And apart from that, when I completed this task, they asked me to make a pull request onto their repository, so that I may know what the workflow for making a pull request is for Ruscio particularly. So I had to go through their contribution guidelines, and then I had to read what was the procedure. And I messed up like many times. I messed up like 2-3 times, or like probably I messed up 5 times, because that time Ruscio you had to make a pull request in Ruscio in 2 different branches. So that was a bit typical for me, because I had never made pull requests to organizations before, and also I never knew how to make multiple pull requests and everything. I was like very new to this open source contribution stuff. So that was in 2019, and that year I drafted a proposal somehow, because this whole thing took around 2 weeks of my time, along with college and all. Also, I had been involved in other organizations also, so that also took up some of my time. Then I realized that I shouldn't have been involved in multiple organizations at once. I should have focused on one single organization, so that I have good time allocation for that single proposal, because we only get 5 weeks for drafting a proposal, and sometimes it becomes very a short period of time to understand the whole software and to draft a proposal and propose some changes. And along with college and everything, it becomes really difficult. So like at least it was difficult for me. Some people have less college load, so good for them. They can devote more time in that. So I had to do these tasks, these two tasks. And after that, my mentor Mario asked me to start a Google Doc for the proposal so that I can write the proposal there, and my two mentors, Mario and Martin, could uh, just drop their comments on there. So these tasks took to around 2 weeks of my time. So I was left with 3 weeks still, and I had to read the research paper, and that research paper also took around a week to read because it was a 21-page paper, and I had to read at least 8 to 10 pages of it to understand what Ruscio is and how Ruscio works. So that was around 2.5 weeks of my time. And then after that, I had just like 4 or 5 days left before the organizations, like before Google opens their portal for submitting a proposal. And even though you can submit the proposal till the last minute, but still you must at least have a clear idea of what you're going to write in a proposal at least a week before the deadline is, at least a week before the portal opens. So at least so that you may have 3 weeks to write and draft a proposal. So at that time, I wasn't able to draft a very successful proposal because one, I didn't understand Ruscio very well because of its complexity and everything, and two, I never knew how to draft a proposal and how to draft a good proposal, in fact. So that was 2019, and I was very not very hopeful about getting selected at that time, because after submitting a proposal, I was pretty dormant for one month, which I shouldn't have been. So, and it was very obvious that I didn't get selected, even though there was not much competition in Ruscio, but there was only one slot allotted to them last year. So even if like 3 people were there, so it's like you still have only a 30% chance of getting selected. So that was my 2019, and that was probably something which I had to go through to understand what all not to do the next year. And for the rest of the year, you may read what I did in my blog. I would link it in the chat in some time, so you may read about it and what all I did during the year. I never prepared for particularly GSOC. I was just preparing myself into getting into software development and stuff, and how to develop applications, and participating in hackathons and everything. So that was the mid of from 2019 to 2020. And in 2020, when I came, Mario and like some people around already knew me because I made 1 or 2 contributions earlier also. Plus, I was connected with them on their IRC, that is Slack, for around a year. So people knew me around, and when I and being a bit more experienced in software development, I knew how front end and back end and how this UI and everything works. And fortunately, the project which they proposed, that native desktop application one, was something which was in my particular domain. So I would say it was a bit lucky of me to see that project there. Even though for that year, I was not interested in getting into this complete software development stuff. I was more into, I started learning about NLP and stuff. So there was a project on NLP also in Ruscio itself. So I wanted to do that, but Mario wasn't directly involved. So I particularly wanted to work with Mario. That was my personal preference, because I care about the culture and the community more rather than getting selected in GSOC. So that is where I switched from that NLP project to this software development project. And I'll say it was a better, it was a good choice. So okay, I see we have some questions here. Okay, so did you have to give a report or something after reading and studying the research? No, I didn't have to give any report as such. They were experienced enough to understand that if I am understanding the software or not, seeing my proposal. So no, I didn't have to give any report as such. I just had to read it on my own pace, and then I had to draft out the proposal. That was it. And can we have a look over the demo of the project? Yeah, definitely. I would love to show the project in some time, Bhaskar. And what is the process of assigning the mentors? Okay, so the mentors, Shreya, are assigned already. So for the projects which are present there, the mentors are written like these are the particular mentors. I don't know what is the process of assigning the mentors on Backstage. So I don't know how they were assigned, but Mario and Martin were very obvious choices because they were the ones who have like created Ruscio. So they are very obvious choices for being a mentor in any of the projects. And also Ruscio doesn't get a lot of ideas in. So they have like at max 3, and they are very new to this GSOC stuff. And it's around like, it was their third time, I guess, they were participating in GSOC, third or fourth time. So compared to other organizations which have been there for like the past 8 or 9 years. So even though CERN was there from the past 4 or 5 years, but Ruscio like being a part of GSOC was very recent, I guess 3 years at max. So that was, I don't know about how they assign the mentors internally. Probably the ones who are the projects which are proposed and which are accepted by the organization admins. The people who are responsible for the projects are selected for being the mentor. So that is about it. And so the tasks this year, I didn't have to do much of the tasks this year, and I could directly go and just start discussing about the project with my mentors, because I already proved that I am able to contribute to their repos last year only. So they don't have a very formal kind of test procedure for like start making a proposal. But yeah, some of the organizations definitely do have that you need to have at least one PR ready before you can start writing a proposal, because they get a volume of applicants and they need to shortlist the people, so the competition rises there. Okay, so Pushwan Kashyap is asking, what technology stack did you mainly work on while developing the application? Pushwan, I'll get on to that when I'll show you the repositories for my projects in just a while, in like around 5 minutes or like 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, as soon as I finish with this. So I just went on to draft the proposal, and initially it took me around 1.5 weeks to just understand what the project was all about, because it was something which I hadn't heard. I like around 80% of the terms are very foreign to me, but I was just in there because I had to work with Mario and Martin, because I like their work ethics and the work culture a lot from last year. So I didn't care much about what the project was at that time. I was just interested in working with Mario and Martin at that time, because I believe that if you have a good boss, you can get the maximum out of a project. And even if the project is not directly in your favorite domain, but even if you have a good boss, you'll definitely get something good out of it. But if you have a really good project and you don't have a very good mentor or a boss, you might feel a bit demotivated and frustrated sometime in the project, and then there'll be no one to hold you at that point. So that becomes very tedious, very exhausting for you also. So that was something. Okay, so if I may share my screen now, I would like to show you all which projects I did. Before going on to that, if anyone has any questions regarding this, regarding how the tasks and everything, you can just unmute yourself and speak if that's possible. Anyone? I'll just wait for 1 minute while I share my screen. If anyone has any questions, please unmute yourself and speak. Hello. Shubhrat?
Vivek, I think, yeah, we can go ahead actually. Yeah, you can go.
Okay, sure. So is my screen visible now?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the first thing which I developed was Ruscio Notifier, and I am the one who has contributed here the most. I cannot. Okay, wait. Yeah, so if you see all these contribution charts, like mine was the most commits, and there's around 25,000 lines of code, probably. And if we remove the boilerplate for React, it was still around some 20,000 lines of, like around 18,000 lines of code or something, not 20,000 exactly. So, and there were a lot of configuration stuff there. So this was Ruscio Notifier, and it looked something like this. And I already have a blog on what what all I did, and there are very like a lot of illustrations there. So this is something which this repository is what I got from scratch, from with just a README, and now here it is. And I released Ruscio Notifier version 1 on 5th October. So that was the first release, and I have all these. I prepared all these cross-platform stuff for like working on Windows. You have an exe file and you have an MSI file for Windows, and then DEB and RPM for Linux. And Mac OS, it would soon be supported because we are working on something right now to make it supported on Mac. So the tech stack which I used for building this, I would like to show it visually here. So this was about the Ruscio Notifier, and the second thing which I built was Ruscio Desktop. If it is visible right now on screen, it's not released yet for public, but you can use it in development mode, because since it being a very enormous software, it isn't particularly released for public yet. And the tech stack I used was is mentioned here. It was React, Electron, Redux, Node.js, Express.js, and React Router, and the Material UI for all the UI stuff, and React Spring for animations. And this is something which I designed for the working of how Ruscio Desktop would work. So it is like an Electron window, and inside the UI is working with React.js, which is connected to an Express server, which is basically a Node.js server. And this Node.js server connects to two things at once. One is the Ruscio Fuse module, which is something which is a standalone application, and it also connects to Ruscio instances, multiple Ruscio instances at once, so that you can mount all these into the Ruscio Desktop itself. And you can just go onto this website and go onto this repo and look at what all was involved. And I had to write all these developer documentations and everything. So if we go to developer documentation, I had to write all these, like if people want to contribute and want to use, what all do they need to know before doing that. Everything is mentioned pretty well. And here is the paper which I was talking about. I have linked it here, and the main repo for Ruscio and the Ruscio documentation. I highly doubt this link would work right now because of season of docs. Because of season docs, like they are migrating their Ruscio documentation to some other place. So I'll change the link soon enough. And these are the contribution guidelines which you can follow, and it is like written step by step. So if anyone wants to contribute to it, you may do that. And for the tech stack, this was pretty much it. If people are working with MERN stack already, you won't find much difficulty in writing the code, but you may find it difficult to understand what Ruscio is all about. So that would take some time regarding that. And for the next thing, I'd say if Diksha, are you present there?
Actually, Diksha had to leave for certain reasons. So, oh, no, Diksha is
Okay.
here, I guess.
So,
Yeah,
so
sure.
Shubrat, we still have 20 minutes left.
Yeah,
So
sure.
this was all about my project. If
Okay.
now we can have an interactive session in for 20 minutes, and if people want to know anything about the proposal or anything about how they can make PRs for Rusio Desktop or Rusio Notifier or even Rusio itself, or what is there anything particular you have in mind if you want to ask something in particular?
So there's a question by Rekon Majumdar. So can you give a insight on how you released it for different platforms like Linux or Windows, etc.? Yeah.
Okay, so Reckon, if you are familiar with Electron, I hope you are familiar with Electron, maybe you not know it. If you are using VS Code on your system, on any system, Linux, Mac, or Windows, it's basically an Electron application. So Electron applications are basically based on Chromium browser. So it's like a Chromium browser, and inside you have a website, which because the websites work on all platforms, right? Even if it is a Linux system or a Mac system or a Windows system. But the point is, how would you allow a website to use the native facilities of any any system, like the using the notifications and allowing the allowing restart and allowing to use the file system for the application, right? Or even if you want to connect to other applications running inside the machine, this would become very difficult if you are handling just a website. So Electron allows us to do that. And basically, if you look at the code, and if you are familiar with React.js and stuff, I'll show you something which might help you in understanding that. Okay, wait. So this is the main.js file, which allows you to, which is where I am just opening this localhost 2005 because it's running on your local system. And this localhost 2005 is basically address for my React app, which is all written here. So if anyone is working with React, or if you're working with any stuff like that. And also Electron has something known as Electron Builder, which allows you to build the application for multiple target platforms like Mac, Linux, or Windows. So it is basically I'll say a framework for making cross-platform applications. So that's what I used. It might be a bit extensive on the memory and performance sometimes because it's basically a Chromium browser tab, but for most of the part it works fine. And there can be like optimizations on how I serve the application and how I improve the coverage and stuff for the code so it works fast. And there can be a lot of other checks. I'm not much of an optimization guy, so I don't know much about it, but we can optimize that to work faster and deliver better performance. So that's how I did target all the systems. So Shubhrit, if we have any questions from the audience, if you can ask.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Rahul Thapa is saying, what tech stack your personal choice? Or it was, see Rahul, my mentors, they just proposed the project. And if I show you what the project was exactly, you'll be surprised to see that actually. Wait, let me show you what exactly it was in the beginning. This was the project initially, and it was, they just had this task ideas, and they had a native GUI application for Linux which can rest in the user's task or taskbar system tray, a support for scoped namespace browsing, view file metadata such as blah blah blah. Everything was there, and the requirements they said was like Python 3 and Linux, Git, and Docker. This was mandatory. And they had they just wrote that a basic understanding of cross-platform windowing libraries like GTK+, Qt, WS widgets, and I use none of them because of like these technologies like having their separate use case, and to build something which could handle states and which could handle a lot of data and everything and still have a good UI, I thought to propose my own tech stack in there. So it was a very my whole journey in GSOC was completely discussion based. So I started my work at around 10 or 11 in the morning, and then it went on to 12 or something, because it was when it was 12 in India, it was 9 something in Switzerland or France or whatever in Europe basically. So one of my mentors worked till 9 and the other ones worked till around 6 or something. So I most of the days worked with 9 between like till 9 to 12, from in the morning from 10 to 9 or 12 in the night. So we always had these discussions. So I proposed my own tech stack and I had to design everything from scratch. So I had this liberty of choosing whatever tech stack I wanted. Just that I needed to connect it to Ruscio. So that was the part where they were experts in, and they helped me out with that. Regarding the other things, how I design the software and how I, package it and publish it, and anything in between, writing the unit tests and everything, that was completely up to me. So for my particular project, yeah, I was the one who decided this tech stack, and it was my personal choice, and then it was agreed upon by the mentors. So that's about it, if that answers your question. Anyone else having any questions? Okay. So Shivangi says, the problem statements are so difficult and written in such complicated manner in GSOC. How do we understand the main essence? Okay. So Shivangi, this is something which I had another session and I told people there also, that you cannot aim for particularly understanding directly the GSOC projects, because if you don't understand the fundamentals on how the systems work, or on how this whole software development stuff works, it would be really hard for you to understand the problem statements, and it would feel really overwhelming, because you will think that, okay, I can go with the basic knowledge of I'll go just the overview with an overview of every technology, and I would understand the projects. Often that would not be the case. So you are still in 3rd semester, I suppose, as you have written in your in front of your name. So yeah, so you can first if you think, see, there's a way how you learn to code, right? There's a way how you learn anything. If when you learn the alphabets, you didn't start with directly understanding elephant, right? You first had the alphabets in order, and then you started learning with small words like ant or cat or bat or something like that, and then you increase the word size, and then you reached elephant sometime. So you cannot just directly jump on to understanding elephant and then you say that, oh, I don't understand what it is, and then I need to get down a level, and then does that mean I'm dumb enough to not understand it, or am I not good enough to understand it? So don't think like that. Focus on your fundamentals, and if you say if you have any project in mind, I might go we can have a meeting apart, separate from this, and you can connect to me on LinkedIn, and we may have this going through over a single project or something like that. Or if you have some project in mind and we have still some minutes left, we can go over that project if you want. And you may I may break down that project for you if you are interested in that and you know any project as such. So or we can do it separately, whatever feels nice, whatever feels fine with you. So because you need to just read, even if we see this project which I am holding in my on my screen right now, which is native desktop integration for Exascale, blah blah blah. Don't read all this. This is just a very fancy way of saying that we just needed extra application, and adding words like native and integration, and for Exascale LHC data management. This would simplify just to desktop application for Ruscio. So that's not a big thing. And then if you see that this is the description which they wrote, And this is something which was interesting, which was pertaining to my project. With this project, we seek to enhance the daily user experience. Okay, cool. Such that they can interact with the data managed by Ruscio natively. Natively wasn't much needed there from their desktops. And many are familiar with tools like Dropbox. So basically, we needed to build a Dropbox-like system for Ruscio. But for that, I had to understand what Ruscio is, right? You cannot just directly jump on making application for something which you don't understand. So, and then they had this proposed task ideas. You are not obliged to write all of them in your proposal, or you're not obliged to address all of them as they have been written here. You can understand the crux of it, and then you can write your proposal accordingly. So if and these requirements are just like, see, if they have written optional for Mac OS like Objective C, Cocoa. I even don't know what how to write Objective C, and I don't know what Cocoa is still. But still, the application works well on Mac. We'll release it soon. So all these things are written on their perspective, and you must understand that these people are old enough, like they are like plus 30 plus or something. So they might be a bit unaware of the latest technologies which are there. These GTK plus Qt and WX widgets are very, foundational technologies for building applications. Like for Python, we have tkinter and we have JSwing library for Java. So these are very basic stuff. But now that there are technologies like Electron, and there are frameworks like React, Angular, Vue, and whatever. So people might be unaware, because none of my mentors knew about React.js, so I couldn't reach out to them if I got stuck anywhere. None of them knew about, none of them had worked in the domain of Node.js and creating all these Express APIs and everything. They weren't working in that. Although they knew about what API was, they knew what they wanted to achieve, and I was the one helping them achieve that thing. That if they wanted, they just told me over meetings that okay, we want something like you just click a button, and then the settings change on the server, and then whatever setting has been changed, there's a version control of it. So will you be able to make that? And I had no idea how to do that, but still I said just yes to that. And after I said yes, there was something, some pressure on me that, okay, I have said yes to their demands, and now I have to figure out how to make that. So that is something which I often do, that I say yes first, and then I figure out how I would do that, because that would create a pressure in my mind to learn how to do that. So, and the expected results, they wrote that by the end of GSOC 2020, we are looking for having a fully working desktop application that runs under common Linux environments. We are aware, and all these stuff is very, daunting to see, that we are aware that low latency and high throughput might be not achieved during GSOC due to scale of namespace data, as that requires long-term performance optimizations. Yeah, that's true, but that was not needed here. But they wrote it from their perspective and their knowledgeable perspective. And in GSOC, often this happens that the people who are assigning the projects have they have a lot of experience, and they are not just new mentors. Most of the organizations have mentors who are the people working in the organization, and some of the organizations like TensorFlow, and I guess some organizations are there like JBoss and I don't know, Wikimedia. They allow the past students also to become mentors next year. So and other organizations might also do. I don't remember their names of them. So those people might understand the latest trends, and they might frame this project to seem a bit easy. But these people, we are talking about the people who have been very, deep down in the fundamentals. So they'll talk in those terms itself. So that might be the case, why you feel these problem statements are too difficult and complicated to understand. Sometimes they are because you aren't much aware on what technologies you might use, understanding like while you are reading the project. Does that answer your question, Shivangi? Okay. Anyone else apart from Shivangi having any questions?
So there was a question. Okay, I actually sent you that one. so basically, that was asked by one of the members of the BSc. So you mentioned in your blog that you had completed 2 projects during your winter internship at Linux World. Could you talk a little about those projects as well? Yeah.
I don't think those projects were very related to me contributing into GSOC and stuff. But yeah, I may just iterate over it very quickly. So
Yeah,
those
sure.
projects, the 2 of them were, one was I built a large scale, a tool which could set up large scale Hadoop clusters automatically by just, finding out whatever devices are connected in the same network, and you just press one button and then it installs Hadoop on all those systems, sets it up automatically, and then connects all of them into the same cluster. So that was a one-click solution to like create a like huge Hadoop clusters at once. So that was one project, and the other one was not more of, I'd say, a software project, but it was more of into a data science kind of stuff. It was about predicting the uh, financial, predicting your budget for the next month, and your savings, your possible savings for the next month, and like finding out where you are spending the most and where you're spending the least, and which and are also a collective analysis of what people would how people would like what would be spending trends of people in the next coming months or something. So that was something which, when I was just starting out with all this software development and stuff, so that was, I don't think, much into how I got into this GSOC stuff, this software development. But yeah, that was definitely a very good start for me when I went to Linux World, because at least I was able to see things working in front of my eyes. And if I had started right from the fundamentals and just kept on reading tutorials, books and tutorials, I don't think it would have done much help to me. I think a combination of both should be there. You first understand the fundamentals, and then you try to apply them to things where you can. So that was about the Linux World. If anyone
Yeah.
wants to know, they can just go to the repositories and check it out.
Sure.
I'll be
So can you just
sending some.
say a bit or more on just NLP that you did? Like just you said like you worked on NLP as well. So just can you give a
Yeah.
bit of insight on that as well?
Okay, so basically, I participated in a Kaggle competition, which was titled "Real or Not," disaster tweets, about disaster tweets. So it was about classifying tweets, data, like a collection of tweets, into if they reported about a disaster or not, and which location they came from. So I used, there were some requirements for that competition on Kaggle. It was that you had to use AutoML, and they gave some credits for using AutoML. AutoML is something which allows you, which is present on Google Cloud Platform, and it allows you to build these strong NLP, like very accurate NLP models, and you have to just tweak a few parameters. So that was something which was a requirement for the competition, though it didn't give as much accuracy as my own model did, which I made using BERT. And BERT is a bidirectional transformer for it is used for many things like classification and like translation and everything. So I used BERT for particularly classification purposes, and I watched some tutorials by Abhishek Thakur on how to. At that time, Abhishek Thakur was just recently crowned the 4-time Kaggle Grandmaster. So I was just following his that time he didn't have a YouTube channel and not much of a LinkedIn presence. It was like around a year and a half ago. So now he is pretty famous, and he wrote some books. He wrote a book also on how to approach any machine learning problem. So I was just reading about his whatever notebooks he had published, and from there I learned. And also I collaborated with my uncle. He's a senior data scientist at Cisco in the States, in California. So he also told me about how I can improve my models and the accuracy and stuff. So that was although I don't work much in NLP now, I just use it for application purposes. I don't have much experience in the research part of it.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, anything else we can go in the
Yeah.
next like 2 to 3 minutes?
Sure. So anyone have any doubts, then just ask on the chat, or you can just
Yeah.
unmute yourself here.
If anyone wants to contribute to my projects, I'll be just sending down the links there. You can either reach me out directly on LinkedIn, or you can reach me out on the repositories itself if you wish. Just let me post the links to this, and I'll also post the links to the blogs and stuff if anyone is interested. I wrote a very detailed blog on getting selected into GSOC with CERN,
Yeah.
which is right here. And if anyone wants to understand how I changed this, what all I built during this GSOC, I had a good like detailed blog on that also. So
So anyone have any doubts?
yeah,
So
you can just ask me any doubts, and if anyone
sure.
remembers any doubt later on it also,
Yeah,
they
sure.
can reach out to me on LinkedIn or GitHub, anywhere. I'm available. I'm mostly available on LinkedIn almost throughout the day, not on weekends generally. So these are the GitHub and the LinkedIn links. So you can maybe send me a request and I'll accept it in some time, or probably tomorrow. And also I summarized our last session in a 10-minute video, which we did with Diksha, and that video would be out soon or what? It would be out tomorrow on my YouTube channel. So you can like go and check that out also. And if you subscribe right now, you may get a notification on when it's released. I was just adding, it is done, and I was just adding subtitles before this session. So I'm assuming it would take another hour to do so. So these were some things which I had about my project. If anyone has any doubts, you can just mail me, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we can get it clarified. And if anyone wants to, anyone has doubt in any particular project or any discussions they want one-to-one, I'm available for that also. Although not very promptly, but yeah, if it is, it falls in my free time, I'll just have a discussion of that also with you. So anything else, Shubhrat, we have to address here?
I think we are fine with that, I guess. Yeah, I think most of the questions are answered.
Any other question you had in mind which I can address in this like next 2 minutes or 3 minutes, if there was any quick question you had, or like thought in mind or something like that.
Okay, so I would like to ask a question, basically, because since like I'm from the last year CSE, right? So I have a dilemma, like I mainly work on AI and stuff. So basically, like what is the way to like so I think I'm too much into one directional kind of thing, that I only work on AI and stuff. So like, is it necessary to like go for one thing, or you should go like you should explore more things like together, which will help more, I guess.
Since which year are you doing this AI and ML stuff?
So I think I have been doing that from like third semester, as of now.
Okay, third semester, that means like your second year, right?
Yeah, so 2 years and stuff.
Okay, so if you are there in 2 years, and have you like done any internship in the industry or not?
Yeah, sure. I have done 2 internships for that, like on that particular technology was like,
yeah. So you might be knowing how AI and ML scene is in India, and how things work in India, right? So I am not much there to comment on that, because as far as I have seen, I was a research intern at IIT Bombay in my at the end of my second year.
Yeah.
And there I worked with this machine learning along with the game theory stuff, and it was purely research based. It was no application based.
Yeah.
And there I got to know the scene, that what all is going into ML, and how much mathematics do I need to
Yeah, goes on, yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Being a mathematics student myself, I am a mathematics and computing student. I'm in a 5-year program and currently in
Yeah.
the 4th year. So being a mathematics student myself, I had to see that there are a lot of things before I dive into pure ML and AI. So I have been doing that along the sides. But if you think you want to go completely into AI and stuff, you can surely go for that. And there are now job openings, because now we're working remote, right? So there are job openings for in startups who are just getting into this ML and AI stuff. So if can you just narrow down your question to what you were asking?
So
Once
basically,
again.
the idea is like so basically, I mainly work on deep learning, basically deep learning, and recently I have been starting working on NLP. So basically, the idea is to like, should I work specifically on that and like explore more on that part, because it is a huge thing, as you said, like mathematics and everything. So basically, should I go for that, or should I also explore the other technologies as well, as you said, the job scenario and the thing? So basically, that actually two doesn't align up together, you know?
No, they don't align much. But see,
Yeah.
where I work is somewhere in the middle of both of them.
Yeah.
More on the software dev side, but I bring in all these ML knowledge into software development. How I do that is, like, I cannot suggest you exactly what to do exactly, but I can I can tell you my take on it. What I think is, if you're working in ML and AI for 2.5 years now, and you really like doing that stuff and you don't feel bored, and you are not doing it just for the sake that you can get a job or stuff, because see, good AI jobs and good ML jobs are very scarce in India, because most of the companies, which are the startups which are getting this ML and AI projects, they are bootstrapping it from other people, right? Very less research is going on in building original models, or understanding how like deeply it works, and more on how we can meet the deadlines with those projects. So if you want to go into that, you can explore more into how you can get into ML and AI stuff. But what I think is what people should know is that how to complete their ML and AI projects. If they are getting into ML and AI stuff, you need to have some projects, right? And I'm sure you might be having some of your own also, if you're working in it. But the question arises, if your projects are complete enough so that people can use it. Right. So like, I built that NLP model for disaster tweets, but currently like some weeks ago, I was working on building a UI for it so that people can use that model. And I was trying to deploy it on some platform where like through an API, so that people can just put in a tweet, or just put the link to a tweet there, and it can classify it as a disaster tweet or not. Like, so that way I'll have something which is, a complete product out of my ML and AI knowledge, whatever I have. So that makes, I guess, more impact on the people, and that enhances your capability as a person who is starting out in ML and AI. Because see, if you go into a mid-scale or a small company, even in the States, as far as I have heard and as far as I have discussed with people there, and even in India, you have to do a lot of work on your own. You cannot just focus particularly on the AI and the ML core stuff, because in big companies you can do that, because if you go into Facebook or Google or some other big company like Uber, who are doing all this stuff very extensively, you can just go and focus on the core fundamentals of it, because they have people who are there to deploy it. There are people who will build an API out of it. There are people who will design the UI for it, and there are people who will do all the data cleaning and stuff. They'll give you the clean data, you just need to build a model, and the rest of the things will be taken care of. But when you are a beginner, you're starting a project, I believe you must have something to show people that, okay, my project is, see, this one is complete. You can just check it out directly. right? Just go into this link and check it out. If you have any projects like that, firstly, I would be very interested to check it out and to use it. And if they are open source, I would love to have some contributions put in there. But if you are into ML and stuff, you may have some projects completed. For that, you might need to understand a little of these,
Software engineering,
you know, the software dev stuff, that how the APIs work and everything. Because in startups, you will have to deal with people who are working with that. You cannot just have to say, you cannot just say that, okay, I am a ML and AI guy and I won't be working with all of this stuff. You can just handle it on your own. So they won't give much preference to that kind of attitude in India, at least right now. In the US, it is a bit, they're getting into more side where you can just work on AI and ML and you can get away with it because other people are doing the stuff which you don't need to do, the UI and the deployment and delivering stuff. So that was just my take on it, because you are free to do whatever you can.
Sure. So this will be the last thing probably, as we don't have much questions as of now. So many of the people within this panel as well, so they are actually into like hackathon and hackathons mainly, Smart India Hackathon is really big in AEC, so specifically saying. So just can you give a your take on hackathons and stuff, like how to approach that? Because maybe we will be doing certain sessions in the future for this particular thing, hackathons as well. So see, I would like to know that how you take it, like how you approach a hackathon and entire that particular part.
See, I don't think I'll be qualified enough to talk about SIH because I haven't participated in it even once. But I have been to hackathons as a participant and as a judge. So I'd say that for hackathons, I believe that the point is to enjoy the hackathon more, not about SIH. I'm not talking about SIH. If your target is to win, you need to definitely work hard on to winning it. Because what happens in hackathons is you get to 36-hour time. And you have to go there and you don't get to sleep and everything. So I personally go and I personally am interested in hackathons because I get free food and free swag from there. And also I get to build something which was lacking from a lot, which I had in my mind and couldn't build from a long time. So it gives me a very good head start for making some software. In one of my hackathons, I built a software which would allow you to pull in food orders from your hostel. That was called GnomNom. It is still open. It was, the tech stack was Flutter and Python. So I was thinking of this idea from a long time, but then I got a platform and I just put in one more team member, and we just went in there and built this application to a minimum viable product. And the devs were pretty interested in it. And they just wanted to know if how would you monetize it? And I said I just came in here for fun. I don't know how to monetize it yet because I didn't think about it. I am just focusing more on building the product rather than monetizing it. So for hackathons, I'd say I don't have much opinion on hackathons, but yeah, I think without sleeping, how much you can code, because you won't be writing perfect code, and the code which you write in hackathons is very different from what code you'll be writing in a production environment. So just try to enjoy the hackathons apart from SIH. I'm not talking about SIH. I'm not talking about any big hackathon, like In-Out is coming also. So if you're selected into In-Out, it's like a very big hackathon, and it's like coming from the 7th season now in December this year. So if you're participating in that, try to bring your best foot forward, because at hackathons, the best thing which you get is to socialize and to network with people. And that, you never know which person might be interested in your idea, and you later on start a company and he's interested to come and work with you. You never know about that. So the best thing is to market yourself out in a hackathon and to socialize and to understand what other people are also doing, not just focusing on the competitive spirit and just working on your product. Because see, if 50 teams are there, only 3 would win, right? And for the rest of the 47 teams or 46 teams, what is there then you'll think what was the purpose of building all this when we didn't win. But if you had network there, if you enjoyed the food and you got a lot of swag, you participated in mini events and everything, you would say it was worth it. In the
Yeah,
end, you will
obviously.
say it was worth it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
worth your time. So
Yeah.
that is my take on hackathon. I'm not a guy who has participated into SIA, so I don't have much opinions on that. I believe AEC people have reached ahead, like further rounds in SIH, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah, we had,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
But,
So
this
there are
year,
people.
this year
I think,
Subrat's team was selected and they went to the final.
yeah, we went there. So yeah.
Okay, your team was selected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think my team was one, and there is one more team, and that I
Mhm.
think that like the leader of the team is also here, I guess. But yeah, there were two
Mhm.
teams last year that we went to finals. Yeah, there were two
Oh,
teams.
great, man, great. That
Yeah,
was something
thank you.
good.
Yeah,
You're going this year
sure.
also?
Probably not because we have to like manage for the last year this time. There are a lot of projects, but for sure, like there are like juniors are coming in, so they will be
Mhm.
going. Yeah, so we will try to win this year probably. Last
Oh,
year,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, we end up with
okay,
yeah,
okay, okay. That's great, man. That's great.
yeah.
So,
Thank
if no one else has any questions regarding it,
Yeah. So anyone
can
have
we say that
questions?
we have reached the end of the session?
Yeah, sure. I think
Yeah,
just hold on it for a second. If anyone have doubt, then you can quickly ask now, I guess.
yeah. And you
So
can
yeah,
check out all the links which I sent in
yeah,
the
sure.
chat
I'll
box.
just give them in
Yeah.
there this links. Yeah, sure.
Hello. Can you speak a little about code quality for contributing to the projects and all for the
Okay,
GSOC?
yeah, sure, Rahul, sure. So, for the code quality, I would say that if your code quality improves as your fundamentals improve, right? If you know that, suppose, which language do you work in, Rahul?
React, Node, Express, etc.
Okay, particularly in
JavaScript.
React, that's great. Suppose if you're working with React, okay, have you used hooks up till now anywhere?
I use class components and like contacts and etc. I don't even use Redux actually.
Okay, okay. So I would like really encourage you to use Redux or Context API at least sometime, if that's
Yeah, I use context,
if
but
you
I
reach
don't
the
use Redux for the
okay,
boilerplate
that's fine.
stuff.
That's fine. If you're using Context and Redux, like both serve the same purpose. Like so for the code quality, like suppose if you are working with my code, right? So I use Prettier for sanitizing my code. So and I have already put in some pretty strict rules on how to write the code there. So I have added some manual rules there, and like I don't allow comma dangle and everything. In comma dangle is basically the last comma in the JSON file or any object file. So I have put rules there to not allow comma dangle and everything. So for the code quality, I'd say the more cleaner and the more human readable code you write, the more better it is. Suppose if you're using just like I'll give you one example. Suppose if you're using I'll tell you one example. If you write if age is greater than 7, then do some stuff. Okay, suppose this is a very basic code which you have. Now the reader who is reading this code, how will he know what 7 indicates, right? When someone reaches this point of your code, how will someone know that if what 7 is pertaining to? Now if a better code will be that you define a constant up somewhere and write const min age in capitals equal to 7, and then you use min age, that variable, everywhere in your code, right? So suppose if you want to change the code, you have to change it only once. So what I follow as a rule when writing code is that if someone asks me to change a particular feature or to add or remove a particular feature, how quickly will be able to do that, or how many minimum lines of code I'll have to change to remove or add or alter that feature? That pushes me towards refactoring my code into smaller functions and using better techniques to write code. And that's one rule which I follow. If you start following this rule, if you aren't following it right now, you may start following this rule, and you'll drastically see the change in like your development speed as well as your code quality. You automatically push yourself into doing that. If that answers your question, Rahul.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we reached the end of this session,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if anyone still has any doubts, I'll just call out again to reach me out on LinkedIn. And if you want to contribute to my projects, just check out my GitHub. And there are some projects, and 2 of them I'm working on actively right now. One is Resuminator Landing repository, which I'm working. You can check it out and see what it is. And it's something related to all you students itself, whoever are in, from first year to 4th year. I'm building something for them right now. And I'm a personal user of that software too. So you can check out this repo called Resuminator Landing, and the website for this would be somewhere this. And one person has already contributed. This project started very early, very recently, and a person has contributed to it also. So you can check this out, check this website out, and you can contribute to our projects. And that way you will know how to contribute to big open source organizations once you start maintaining your own projects and contributing to your friends' projects. So that way you learn by doing. There's no way to just have to read read books and follow tutorials without doing some stuff. So that's from my side, Shubhrat. And thank you for having me on this session.
I just hope that you like this session. Like,
I would have loved if people were more, people
sure.
like Rahul just unmuted himself and spoke out to me. I don't know what people are scared of, because if you're scared of talking to new people, how would you get into open source? That would be very difficult for you, because in my last session also, I told that you need to bond with the community more.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're bonding with the community, it's like that's your one good ticket into getting into their culture and understanding the culture and knowing if you can work with them for a long term, like with a high pressure 4 months or 3 months. If you can work with them, then only you should go and apply for GSOC and stuff, because like first thing is to introduce yourself to the community. So I would have loved it if that was there, but I am very glad that the questions are not repetitive, and they are they were good questions, like from Shivangi and Rahul. Like they all asked very good questions for this session. Last time it got a bit repetitive, so this was one good thing about this session.
Yeah, sure. So Diksha, I'll just like to hand over to you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Video on. So yeah, thank you for joining with us. I hope you have enjoyed, and yeah, I made sure that the questions were not repetitive. I think that is the one thing that a question repeat nahi hona chahiye.
That becomes very boring for everyone. And the questions repeat.
Me and Shubhrat were like, yaar, question repeat nahi hona chahiye. They being our juniors, I don't know, they are like scared or something.
No problem. It happens with people, but they'll eventually have to get out of this, introduction fright, which they might have right now. I was even scared of like introducing to myself to new people, because I thought that what would I introduce about myself? What is something about me which I would introduce? So, but still, you can just start with your name and what year you are in, what project you're doing, because that's what I'm seeing people doing in all the communities, and they're like especially writing that, okay, I'm here just for GSOC. So I don't know why people do that, but I'm seeing people doing that in a lot of groups. Like I saw particularly in Accord project and other groups also in Open Minded, I guess. So people are just there and okay, I need to contribute to the projects, and I'm here for GSOC 2021. Will you help me out? So even if they're doing that, they're introducing themselves in the community. So that would help them later on, because some people from them only will be, the final shortlist for the projects. And that's one good thing about introducing yourself early in the process. So
yeah, I think I will ask or request everyone if they can turn on their video so that Vivek can see.
I can see, and I would really love if everyone takes a screenshot and posts it on LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
tags everyone else, because that increases like your network and your network worth. So like I would really appreciate if everyone does that.
Yeah.
Just
If,
like 2 minutes, and you can take screenshots and everything like that.
yeah, let's
If
turn
that's
on
possible.
yeah, turn on your videos, audios, everything. Yeah.
You getting?
अबे शर्माओ मत यार। क्या शर्मा रहे हो?
सब लोग एक ही कॉलेज के हो ना तुम लोग?
हाँ,
तो मुझे कॉल
everyone
क्यों
is from
कर रहा है?
AEC. Yeah.
Okay,
Am I
okay.
calling you? Oh shit. Sorry. Just got that.
Yes.
Anyone else turning on their cameras right now? Okay, Kunjal has left.
Too shy.
Actually, maybe he
No
is having some
issues,
network
no
issues as
issues.
well. Yeah. Yeah.
भाई लोग
Okay.
यार ठीक ही समझ रहे हैं, भाई टीचर नहीं है यार, मतलब ये उनसे बोल सकते हो ये सब चीजें कि नेटवर्क नहीं सही है, यहाँ पे क्या ही करोगे बोल के.
Exactly.
So I would like appreciate everyone if like everyone takes a screenshot and puts it on LinkedIn or somewhere. If people are sitting on a PC, or if they want a screenshot, I'll just share it from my end to
Sure.
you. And
1, 2,
yeah,
3. Just
so
mine.
post it. Okay, done.
Yeah. I think we are done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait. I'll share the screenshot if it is possible to share it here. Oh,
Is it possible?
I don't think I can
Oh,
share a
here you
screenshot.
find.
No. I don't think we can share a screenshot here. No.
Siddhant, you came late. The screenshot session is over. Bechara.
Wait. I have a very good trick of sharing screenshots anywhere around the internet, and I'll let you know about it just in a second. If anyone has used GitHub earlier, what you can do is you can just open an issue and copy paste, just drag your image over there, and what it does is uploads your image somewhere, and then you can share it like this, which I did on the link right now. So if it opens this image, yep, this would work.
I got that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I do all the time. I use I abuse that power of GitHub, that it uploads it somewhere, and I don't have to host the image all the time. I'm posting it somewhere on the internet. So that is something very good. So we may end this session right now. Shubhrat
sure.
and Diksha.
Yeah.
And Diksha,
Yeah,
that video is already edited, and I'm just
Okay.
adding the subtitles for our conversation, and I'll upload it probably tomorrow now, because it's like 7:25 already.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
Okay.
thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think
Thanks, Diksha,
thank you
for
for
having me.
having LinkedIn requests and more answering sessions. I wish you all the
Yeah.
best for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chalo. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.